I think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Left-leaning media contributor Tara Palmieri repeated many of the usual talking points we've come to expect, big words and bold claims that sound good, but don't always lead to real solutions. But Bill Maher wasn't having it. He cut through the noise with one sharp question that challenged the heart of her argument. She was caught off guard. No quick reply, no clever pivot. Just silence, and that's the bigger issue. Too often, political messaging on the left relies on strong slogans and moral posturing, but when it's time to talk about real-world problems like crime, the border, inflation, or national security, the conversation gets quiet. Maher's challenge was a reminder: words alone aren't enough. Real progress needs more than statements. It needs action that actually helps everyday Americans.
I noticed that at the Super Bowl, for the first time in, I think, 4 years now, the Trump administration is making them take away "end racism," which they had written in the end zone, right? And when
why? It just seems silly. I mean,
to do it or not to do it?
Why get rid of it?
Oh, I could tell you why.
I know, but it's just like
because it was stupid to begin with.
Yeah, but
let me ask you, who's it for? And if you're a racist and you see "end racism" in the end zone, you're going to stop being a racist?
Bill Maher has clearly distanced himself from the political left, and it's raising eyebrows. While he hasn't come right out and said it, his recent sharp criticisms and heated exchanges with Democratic guests have made his stance pretty obvious. In one particularly intense episode, Maher strongly pushed back against a guest's use of race in the conversation, leaving a strong impression on viewers. It was a tough moment to watch, and hard to ignore. If you want more honest takes that call out political double standards, be sure to like and subscribe.
But the sentiment is basically like, don't be a...
But I think it's an to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or any. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's going to make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you write "don't be an on the end zone," everybody will agree with that.
If you've been wondering why slogans like "end racism" seem to have faded away, it's not because of any big political decision. It's because corporate America has started to shift course. For years, companies rolled out feel-good messages and colorful logos to keep up with online pressure and activist demands, not necessarily to fix anything, but to protect their image. It was more about avoiding backlash than making real change, but now, things are changing. That wave of performative messaging is slowing down. Many businesses are quietly stepping away from symbolic gestures and returning to their original brand focus. In short, they are no longer afraid of public pressure the way they once were, and the trend of empty corporate virtue signaling seems to be on its way out.
Under the previous administration, we would have inquiries. We would request information. We would want cabinet secretaries and assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries to come before committee. We would send letter after letter after letter and get no response. The Biden administration operated literally in the shadows. They would not tell you anything that was going on. At least Donald Trump puts it out in the litany of orders that come out that day. Here's what we're doing today. We're going into the Department of Justice. We are taking these attorneys and they are under supervisory review, or however they choose to phrase it. You knew nothing that was going on in Joe Biden's presidency.
At the same time, these leaders claim to stand for democracy. But how democratic is it when important information is hidden from the public? With them, transparency often feels like an illusion. Press events are tightly scripted, stories are filtered, and what's shared rarely tells the full story. Even when they do speak up, it's usually not honesty, it's spin. With the Democrats, the more you dig, the more unclear things become. It's all carefully crafted messaging and political showmanship. Now, compare that to Trump. Like him or not, he made bold promises, and many of them, he followed through on. Meanwhile, Democrats have a track record of saying one thing and doing another. Take President Biden, for example. He said he'd uphold the rule of law, even if it involved his own family. But when it came time for accountability...
A bunch of privileged mean girls complaining about privilege and trying to make fetch happen. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok.
Bill Maher didn't let up. He kept challenging Tara Palm-Mary for doing what many on the left are often criticized for, ignoring real-world issues and viewing everything through the narrow lens of race and gender. It's the same approach the Democratic National Committee has leaned on for years: divide people into groups, push identity politics, and hope voters don't notice the lack of real answers. But that strategy is wearing thin. More and more Americans are seeing through it. The real problem? Instead of changing course, Democratic leaders are digging in deeper, sticking to the same old talking points that once worked but now feel empty. Maher's criticism only highlighted the growing frustration. When political conversations focus more on identity than on real solutions, people tune out, and time is running out for that approach to hold up.
And sexism? Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump, which in a normal country would be called a victory. It wasn't 21st century sexism that prevented a woman from being president. It was the Electoral College. Democrats run for office as if the voters don't live here, as if they don't go to the grocery store and Starbucks and the office, but they do. They live here.
Democrats often claim that candidates like Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton lost support simply because they are women. It's a go-to excuse that deflects from deeper issues. But as Bill Maher has pointed out, gender wasn't the problem. Policies were. Voters didn't reject these candidates because of who they are, but because the Democratic Party keeps avoiding the issues that matter most to everyday Americans. Instead of focusing on rising costs, border security, crime in cities, or rebuilding trust in government, Democrats often get caught up in debates over language, pronouns, and identity politics. Maher's criticism hits home. It's not female candidates people are rejecting, it's a party that seems more concerned with appearances than with delivering real solutions. And that disconnect is costing them support.
And they actually see women and people of color, and it doesn't look like some patriarchal racist nightmare. Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but f your feelings. Look at this chart. Yes, there's a lot to not like already about the new regime, but maybe take 1 week to ask what you did wrong. The basis for Democratic campaigns has become, we're the smart people. That we know from the get-go.
This has always been one of the biggest issues with the Democratic Party. They often come across as if they are the only ones who know what's best. If you challenge their views or don't go along with their ideology, you're quickly written off as uninformed or out of touch. That kind of attitude shows up in their speeches, debates, and media appearances. It's not just confidence. It often feels like outright arrogance. Add to that their constant moral posturing, and it's easy to see why many Americans are turned off. Instead of trying to connect with people, they talk down to them. Instead of finding common ground, they shame those who disagree. The result? A party that says it stands for inclusion, but often ends up pushing people away. And in the process, they've distanced themselves from a large portion of the country.
Well, all you have to do is ask my father, who literally was shot in the Orangeburg Massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's at 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody...
But that doesn't mean it is. Well, you said he feels that way. That's ridiculous. It is.
The moment you question Democratic policies or don't fully align with their views, you're often accused of wanting to take the country backwards. It's a familiar tactic. Label any disagreement as outdated or extreme. But let's be honest, America has made real progress since the 1960s. Women vote, hold leadership roles in government and business, and even run for the highest offices. We've already seen our first female vice president, who's also a woman of color. That alone shows how far the country has come. Yet instead of recognizing this progress, many on the left continue to push a narrative that America hasn't changed. They lean on outdated grievances and paint the nation as stuck in the past, even when reality says otherwise. The focus stays on victimhood rather than on celebrating the growth and opportunity that now exists. And for many, that disconnect is hard to ignore.
I think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Bill Maher didn't hesitate to speak up when Barry Sellers started focusing on race in a way Maher saw as unhelpful. Sellers said that people who aren't black could never fully understand the experiences of black Americans. But Maher pushed back, saying perspective goes both ways. Sometimes being too close to an issue can make it hard to see the full picture, just as much as being on the outside. Maher suggested that Sellers, though passionate, might be so caught up in the story of racial struggle that he misses the bigger picture. It was a strong reminder that understanding isn't only about skin color, and that always framing issues through race can sometimes get in the way of finding real solutions. Maher's point was clear. Being close to a problem doesn't always bring clarity. Sometimes, stepping back helps us see what's really going on.
You're not too close to something. I am that.
I know.
And so, but what I am saying though is for you to discount my father's experience and say,
I'm not discounting it.
And to say it was silly.
I'm not.
No, he was shot.
No,
Were you shot?
No, but he's still alive. Like he's right here. Like,
right. But the idea that if I were to say to you as a Jew that the experience of Jews in the United States today is worse than the experience of Jews in Europe in 1939, I would not be stating accurately. Correct. It's not true.
That's
and
right.
It's also not true to say that the experience of black people in America in 2024 is worse on a general level than the experience of black men in 1954 in Alabama. That's just crazy.
Many so-called race experts have built their careers and their income on the idea that America is hopelessly racist. Their whole livelihood depends on keeping that story alive. So they often twist facts, exaggerate issues, and stir up outrage to protect their position. If the conversation ever shifted to recognize real progress, their influence and paychecks would disappear quickly. Here's the uncomfortable truth they don't like to admit. Life for black Americans today is better than it was decades ago. Opportunities once unimaginable are now real. We've seen black mayors, governors, senators, billionaires, CEOs, and even a two-term black president. That doesn't mean challenges don't exist, but to act like nothing has changed is dishonest. Deep down, even they know progress is real. But admitting it would threaten their business. In the end, the left often clings to empty slogans, race baiting, and moral grandstanding, ignoring both real progress and real problems. Bill Maher's pushback showed just how weak those empty arguments are. Words without substance don't cut it anymore. America has come a long way, but Democrats keep pretending otherwise because their power depends on it. That's a wrap for today's video. If you liked it, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.